Welcome to the Limit Free Life Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. I bring you tips, advice, and guest stories about creating work you love. Whatever type of career or business you have or want, I want to help you find more meaning, money, and happiness. Now we are live from Hollywood. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Limit Free Life Show. I'm your host, Michelle Perkins, and I have such an exciting guest today, and she is going to help all of us to fund a life we love. And that is such an important thing right now. I am so pleased. Money has been so on my mind lately, and I know on everybody's mind, because we're learning so many lessons right now, and so much is happening. So many people are in transition. People are losing their jobs. People's businesses are running through some tough times, and some are not. Some are just booming right now. So I think it is a really important time for everybody to really reflect on their finances and see how we can empower ourselves further. I mean, you might be good, you might not be, where you want to be in terms of your money. I think right now is a great time for everybody to get on the starting block and do whatever needs to be done in your particular situation. So I'm bringing on Leslie Crumley today, and she has a very solid foundation in traditional finance, and she is also creating some new things to help individuals in some new ways. And so I'm going to have a great conversation with her today. I'm going to tell you a little about Leslie. Leslie almost lost everything in the Great Recession of 2008. She crawled out of a deep, dark hole and now teaches others her secrets to financial success. She's a personal finance strategist and author of 7 Steps to Fund a Life You Love Living. She's going to share with us today what you can do right now to reinvent your relationship with money, no matter how much or little you have. At the end of the show, she'll share a few resources to further support your financial success. And welcome, Leslie.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to chat with you and your listeners. My goodness.
Yeah. Now, this is going to be great. And you are just a wealth of financial information. But I love the way you treat it with kind of a dash of spirituality and mindfulness and all kinds of good things. And you really combine the money mindset and the relationship with money along with some very practical and straightforward ways to manage your money, tools to use. So I'm going to let you jump in, and if you can kind of give us a little background so people can know kind of where you come from, and then some of the events that brought you to this point here.
Okay, well, I will try to keep that short because there are so many events that got me here. But one of the reasons I'm passionate about money and the management of it is because, well, a couple things. One, I love to travel, and you need time and money to travel. So at some point when I was young, I thought, I got to figure out how to have time and money. Some people have it, we don't. So how do you get that? So I was always curious about that journey. And then when I was 13, my father died, and he did not have life insurance. So right there, I was impacted by choices that were not made. I don't think they were consciously aware of having an insurance policy in place, but it dramatically impacted us. And so that was just my first kind of lesson in, there are things you need to be aware of. And then when I met my husband in, I hate to say how many years ago, over 30 years ago, he told me, he said, I'm going to have to support my parents because they didn't save for retirement. And guess what? We ended up supporting them for 15 years in our household. And that had a tremendous impact on our lifestyle and the choices we made. And so it's one of the other reasons I like to, highlight for people that it's not just about you. It is about a family legacy of how you think and how you manage your money. So, and then, as a result of having to support them, I thought, well, gosh, I don't want to end up there. So I'm going to buy some real estate. Well, I did that in 2007 and 2008 at the top of the market, investment real estate. I bought in 3 states and in 2 years, about 16 investment properties. So in crawling out of that hole, I went back to the basics because it's like, how can you make this horrible mistake when you've been a financial advisor like I had been and been in management and compliance? I oversaw like 76 branch offices for compliance, administration, and operations. I worked in international bank for personal banking for affluent clients. How could I have gone so wrong? So as I was digging out of that hole, I had to, one, figure out how I was going to get out of bed. And that's when I started employing gratitude, a gratitude practice. I really credit that practice of saving my life. And then how do I go back and relearn how to use some tools that are common in business, but not so common when you manage your personal finances? And so that's what I learned. And now that's what I teach, because I believe in mindful money management, which is not about money at all. It's about self-development and choice management. So that's kind of my little story.
Oh, that's a great summary. Thank you. And I didn't know some of the earlier things. I really can understand the passion you have for this, because you've been affected multiple times. And I do relate very well to knowing the rules of money and everything else, and not necessarily living that out in your own life and sitting there just asking yourself,
How did I go so wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, well, let's go back to the gratitude practice, because obviously you were in a pretty tough place. And so, from that, it sounds, it's always easy to talk about gratitude and things when things are going well.
Right,
But when
right.
things are really dark, not everybody can even go there. So what were some of the actual things that you did?
You know what? It was really going back to basics. And it's like when you first start, it was like, okay, I have a bed to sleep in. And I'm really lucky because there are so many people in the world who don't have a bed. And I've got some really nice sheets. So I've got some soft sheets, and most of the time my health is really excellent, except when I herniated my disc and was in such excruciating pain. I think it was caused by the stress. Then, like, once that's over with, you go, oh my gosh, like if I can get out of bed and move and my body is not in chronic pain, I am grateful every day. And it just I redefined what success and gratitude meant to me. And by going back and just really stepping into, our body is so miraculous. How do I keep myself healthy? And how am I grateful for that? Because it is a gift so many people take for granted. And it is not one that you can let go, at all, in my opinion. So.
Wow. So you actually took your focus away from money and onto the other aspects of life. Yeah, abundance is about much more than your bank account balance. And so
it's yes.
That's great. And did you write? Did you,
yes.
What was your process?
I have a gratitude journal that I created, and I would write in it every morning, and I still write gratitude, and I'm in groups where we practice gratitude and abundance and the I am statements, so that you're constantly, because what you focus on expands. And it's especially right now, I feel so fortunate for that horrible experience, because now, like, I have the tools to manage through this pandemic, which is really horrible for a lot of people because it is so easy to get stuck in fear. Mm-hmm. And I leave this, if you have a pencil and paper, you might want to write it down. And it's a quote by Stephen Covey that's something like, if you could feel sad enough, bad enough, guilty enough, worry enough to make something change, by all means do it. But if that does not change anything, then you need to find the light, so that you walk always constantly to the light. And you have to, and so I always keep that in mind when and I try to limit my exposure to, social media and all the negativity that's going on, because really, you can complain all you want, but what can you do personally to make change? And I personally think that how you manage your money, and if you now understand how money flows, mm-hmm. and you can put on your own oxygen mask with it first before you start taking care of others, and you understand that $50 you spend at the pizza place down the street is really going to impact how they are able to run their business, then you have a much deeper relationship with money and appreciation. So that's kind of how I approach that process.
Yeah, money, I think we're seeing too that money is a much bigger topic than just, do I have enough to pay my bills and, do some saving. I mean, so much of what's going on in the world, people are talking about spending, in Black owned businesses, and money has a lot of power to, to fund people's lives in the way they want. And that in turn, allows people to get better education, to do all kinds of things. So it's just, whether you like it or not, money is a huge factor in our society. I mean, you could argue that it's not a good thing, but it is, part of our lives. It's the framework we live in. And so I think, it is time to just take responsibility and say, I need to know more, I need to do what I need to do more, and I need to understand myself as well. And because everybody's different. And so not everybody is going to follow the same money formula. And I don't actually believe in a money formula. I believe in understanding yourself and where you come from. Like you were saying, you're impacted by certain things. Everybody's impacted by messages and occurrences in their life early on. So that helps build kind of this money belief system. And you do have to work within that to some extent. You can change some of those beliefs, but you need to know what you're dealing with.
Well, that's the first step of change, right? Is recognition. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote 7 Steps to Fund a Life You Love Living, is because I had so many people coming to me and I'd spend so much time on just the basics that it got very time consuming and expensive for them to work with me. So I thought, well, how can I provide a tool that I can level out the playing field and give this to access to everybody? And I start with what's called a balance sheet. And before you have any energy around that word, I want you to think of it's the language that separates us from this work. So it's just like if I were talking about God and you didn't believe in God, you might shut that message down really quick because, oh, that's something I don't believe in. That's not for me. But if you can change the language and listen for the message and listen for the golden nuggets, that's why I say, hey, if you hear balance sheet and you don't know what that is, that's okay. Think of it as a financial freedom planning tool. Then you might be able to listen a little bit more. What? There's a tool to help me plan my financial freedom? Yes, there is. And those are some of the tools that I teach. So
oh, I love that. Well, there's a couple of things I want to hear the 7 steps, what they are. And I want to, other people to hear that. So that's one thing. And then I do want to talk a little more about the balance sheet, because that is something that not many people pay attention to necessarily. I mean, business owners often do, but personally people don't. And so I want your take on what that is, why it's important, and how people can start using that information. But which should we do first? 7 steps first or balance sheet first?
Let's do the balance sheet first, because like I was on a call a couple weeks ago, and someone said, if someone had told me why learning some of the upper level math was so important and how I could use it, I would have listened, but they just told me I needed to do it and I didn't listen. That was my experience too, because most people think, oh, you must be really great at math. Like, no, I'm great at Excel and doing formulas in Excel, but like, you don't ask me to add in my head or on a piece of paper because it's not going to happen. So let me share a little bit about how you can use the balance sheet, and let's call it a financial freedom planning tool,
right,
because that's going to feel more approachable and it's more common. We want that to be in our common language, right? So if you have a piece of paper at home, right, if you do the T like you do, the pros and the con list, you do the T, and on one side, instead of put pro, you put own. What do I own? And on the other side, what do I owe? And you make a list of what you own and what you owe. And then the difference between that and on a financial balance sheet, right, is your net worth. And what's the language around that and the thinking, oh, that's tied to my self-worth because I don't have a high net worth. No, I call that your financial freedom tracker. That is simply a number to help you make choices. And it is your GPS. The higher that number goes, the closer you maybe get to a certain lifestyle. The lower that goes, you are, cutting yourself out of some choices. And that's all it is. So it's basically choice management. But in that list of what you owe and what you own and what you owe are what they call categories, just like we kind of categorize things if you had a grocery store, right? You don't put everything all on the shelf just willy-nilly. You organize it by categories, so it kind of makes sense when you're have somebody look at your inventory. The same thing is true on a financial freedom planner. We put it in what you own in certain categories because they all work a little bit differently and have different rules and have different levels of sophistication and knowledge. And so what I suggest to people is like, look, this is your self-assessment. Don't go in thinking I'm bad or guilt or whatever, just go in and take an inventory like you would your doctor. Your doctor takes your pulse. It's not good or bad. It's just like, what is it? So we can track it. And what changes can you make to make sure that you're staying healthy? And this is just the same thing you do with this financial freedom planner that I teach. So
I love that. And I think what you're pointing to is the importance of taking the emotion out of this, because so many people don't do it because they think it's going to look bad. So they just don't even want to go through that emotionally to have to look at it. Look how little I owe, look how much I own, and look how much I owe. And so people just shy away from it because it triggers emotions, basically. So when you were doing this, especially, earlier when you were, trying to pull yourself back up, the gratitude was one thing. Was there anything else you could do to kind of distance yourself from the emotional pain of this?
The distancing was really from that place of gratitude. I have to say that is the strongest foundation. And then taking small steps. It's like, well, what can I do? What one thing can I do today to feel better? I'm not looking at like where I want to be. It's like, well, just what can I do? And what resources do you have? So for example, I had my mail delivered to a UPS box, and I would shake and cry. I mean, literally, my hands were shaking, and I would have to call my dear friend Cheryl, who her company is Simply Cheryl, and she's my real estate mentor. And so she would talk to me on the phone, and she would have to talk to me. I'd have to hear her voice, because when I opened that mailbox, I would have so much mail and none of it was good. Try having a $3,000 water bill in 2 months. Wow. I mean, and it's just one thing after another, and you don't know when the flood's going to stop. Mm-hmm. But when you took the emotion out of it and you go, I can deal with this. It's going to be okay. Yeah. And just what one thing can I do to deal with this today? And then, but through that process, I probably have a deeper understanding than most people about a lot of different strategies and techniques dealing with money, lending, and securities, and all of those good things that most people, even in that business day to day, don't have because of the pain and struggles that I went through. And right. if you've read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, one of his teachings is that education is through struggle. And okay, I've got the MBA, PhD of struggle. So there you go. So I'm grateful right now for that struggle. And then I try to carry that on when something else happens that, like is struggling, like when dealing with my technology for my website, when I don't have context and don't understand. Deep breath. Struggle is my education, and what resources do I have? And this is a self-development journey. And that's the other thing you can always go back to is take away money management out of it and say, this is a self-development journey. Can I self-develop? Yes, I can do something today that's going to impact my tomorrow. And it doesn't have to be huge.
Oh, I love that. And you're so right. The small, the many, many small steps, the little money moves that you do. I was talking to somebody the other day saying, if you did a little money move every day, I mean, at the end of the year, you're a completely new person. You've covered everything, and all you have to do is small things on a regular basis.
Consistency. Yes.
If you don't think that way, I do think it becomes overwhelming and you just check out.
Yeah. I mean, it's like going on a diet, right? It's like you can't like stop eating chocolate and expect to lose 20 pounds in a day. No, it is a lifetime of habits and awareness. And the same thing is true with how you manage your money. But first you got to be aware, right? You inventory the food you eat, you inventory your what you own and what you owe. Same
Yeah.
strategy.
Okay. So you do the inventory and you look at it, and then, maybe you don't like what you see. Is that where the 7 steps come in, or?
The 7 steps come in to helping you recognize the relationship between your goals and dreams. Because if you if you apply, business finance to your personal company, let's say, it's like your mission statement is your goals and dreams, and it's constantly managing your choice management to my goals and dreams. Is this going to take me closer or farther away from my goals and dreams? Because we're not lacking opportunity and educate, or the opportunity for education, because there's so much online that's free. There's tons of stuff, but it's how do you filter down, and how do you know what to choose? And a lot of times you're in a comfort zone of learning things but not doing things. So it's really, that's where those goals are so much science behind having, the SMART goals, specific and measurable with timelines. So what I've done is, like, let's talk about first your goals and dreams. That's why you're going to want to do this work. Because if you think that it's not work, and you think that, oh, I'm going to wait until I have a lot of money, that's like thinking I'm going to wait until I sign up for the marathon to run the race. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. So you want to know what your goals and dreams are and really start working on those. And it's hard sometimes because we've kind of deadened ourselves and kind of on this rat race. And then it's like, the next thing is your time, because we all underestimate what we're doing and underestimate the amount of time something takes. And then it gets depressing. And then you just go binge watch, Game of Thrones or something. So then it's like then people will say, well, I'm working on my time, but I'm not focusing on my money. I'll do that later. No, it's like this. It's like juggling, it's like you're constantly managing those 3 variables. And then there's economic theory that go in with that I don't really talk about, but it's the powerful formulas that are a part of that process. And then we take a look at your vision. Most people don't have a life vision plan. It's kind of hard to come up with that. But what if you have that on your desk and you're writing, thinking, oh, wow, I really like this. I want more of that. And it's really just about journaling what feels good and designing your way forward and writing it down, because there is power in that. Right. And then we take a look at aligning your balance, because I can guarantee you there's not a lot of things you can say, especially when you're talking about money. Guarantees are a no-no when you're talking about that. But I can guarantee you that you are doing some things that you're going to need to stop to get to the next level if you want to make change. If you don't keep doing what you're doing, Einstein's definition of insanity, to get the different results doing the same thing. And then we talk about building a vision team, because we're all taught to work independently, and there's a pride of that, like for our country has, we are independent. Well, the thing is, people, we are interdependent. I think we're learning that now as we're shy on toilet paper. It's like, well, who even thought about that? But we are an interdependent world, and we really need to be mindful of that. And so asking for help, but figuring out how to show up for the help is really important, because as I'm learning, trying to do a website, I can't even articulate what I need because I have such a low level of literacy. I can't talk to anybody about it, which is why I threw that balance sheet in there to start you being able to have the literacy so you can at least have a conversation about it. And then how do you take action? How do you live your vision? And so those are the 7 steps. And we just go through that. I'm doing a guided launch of that 7 steps. It's going to open next week, and I was going to share a discount code for your listeners if anybody's interested. But so I have a guided, so we're all kind of tracking together, because community seems to be really important right now. So
right.
Yeah.
No, that's wonderful, and thank you for that discount. I'll publish that with the show and get that out to people as well. So. And we'll talk about how people can contact you directly at the end as well. So yeah, it sounds wonderful. So the 7 steps, will people be also working through some of the tools like balance sheets and profit?
Yes. Yes, they are. It actually comes because I'm all about binders, right? So I love, and so I call it a vision planner. And I'll just step right. Oh, I should have had it here, but I have like, so you're directed on how to develop your vision plan. So it comes with, I don't know, I think there's like 31 self-assessments that I have, and some of those are tools that you use weekly. Some of them help you get to the answers, but it's guided. It's with meditative music. So there's a very, if you're into yoga and meditation, you'll probably connect with it. If you aren't, you might not, but
or you might
so
learn.
you can learn, you know, you can check it out. But and I do also offer a Monday free call that's 15 minutes from 8 to 8:15 that kind of gives the vibe, because it's all about becoming aware of how you are investing your time. And you notice I'm not saying spending, but investing your time. And how many of us invest our time in, you know, maybe look at Twitter for, you know, 10 minutes, but then you're mad for 30, you know, so really being mindful. And this just helps you bring that awareness. So I'll share that
that would be great. Yeah, and that I know is at 8 or 8:15 on Monday morning, so it gets your week off to a great start.
Yes, it's 8 to 8:15. Right. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a very calming and lovely way to start the week, and it does get you organized. You have a nice tracker for time that comes along with that. So yeah, time and money and energy all go together so tightly. And so how we do one is how we do all of them. And it is very important to get a grip on that, because again, it isn't as much, like you say, about time as it is about choice. How are you using your time? Same with money. How are you using your money? It's all about choices.
And you know what? It's also, I think, about self-esteem, because it is really hard to say no to somebody else, especially if you're a people pleaser, right? And then you say no, you say yes. And the bottom line is, you may have, if you're lucky, you may have an hour a day to work on what I call a priority project or a priority goal. And you say yes. And it's like, well, then it takes double the amount of time. And now you're 1 week or 1 month or 1 year off of what's important to you, you know? So that's why you have to love yourself first. And that's what that gratitude and forgiveness practice is all about, is love yourself, do this for you first, and then you can give more to people.
Right.
You know, and it sounds tired and, you know, old, but that is the truth. That is
and I know, and it's said and resaid, but it's still not integrated into people's lives, including mine, as much as it should be. So that's where the power is, when you're actually doing these things. So, so to that point, which is a great one, because I noticed, I was actually just thinking this before we got on the call, because people were asking for appointments and things, and you know, and I have coaches, I do coaching. There's so much going on, and I started to think, wow, there's not enough time for me to do projects, for me to you know, do a lot of the things. And so it's a constant balancing act. So do you have any tricks for, well, two things. One, how you know, block off time or whatever it is that you do with it. And also with money, like what is the right amount of time to spend on your money?
Okay, so let's address the first one. The first question, which is, what is a trick that I do for time management? And it is, you know, I use the 7-step program because I had to use these tools for myself, because I am really enthusiastic. I want to learn stuff and I want to say yes to everything. And also I have ADD, so it makes it really hard for me to pay attention sometimes. And so I'll forget what I've already said, what I have to do, and just say, yes, squirrel, yes, I'm going after that way. So what I use is, I use the tool on that I work with on my Monday call. I call it a project commitment focus planner. And so I write down what my priority project is for the week. It's been my privacy statement on my website. And it's just taken me 3 times as long for, you know, who wants to go there, but I mean, it's just, but I look at that every time I'm doing on my day. I'm like going, okay, is there any one small thing I can do to make that go forward? So it just puts that visually. And plus I do this handwriting. I know a lot of people will tell me, oh, I already have a schedule. Well, it's not about the current schedule that you have. It's about the cognitive connection, because when you write, it connects your subconscious and your conscious. And 95% of what we do, according to, I think, John Assaraf's program, who studies neuroscience, is our subconscious, which drives us. So it's like only 5%. So I have to constantly connect with my subconscious, because I've got some programming in there that I'm working on changing. So I just time block. And I use colors on my project, my planner, so that I'm constantly looking here and I don't have to look up on my calendar. So if you call me and say, hey, let's meet at 2:00 on Tuesday, I can say, oh, I cannot do that. I have already something that's already scheduled. And then I'm trying to block my time where I'm doing the same thing at the same time each week, so that I'm not constantly going, oh, can I do this? Can I not? No, I know Wednesday mornings I spend with Jen, I spend with my writing team, and I know that that's always blocked off. So I don't have to think about it. And it's really just trying to cut your decisions making, choice management.
Yeah, and don't you think that's the same with money? The more you can not think about, the more you can automate, the more you can have things happening, without you manually doing something. Oh my gosh, makes just a huge difference.
And that's why those spending plans. So I talked about the balance sheet, right? That is to tell you what you have, to help your track everything, a holistic approach, right? But a spending plan is where you're dealing with income and expenses. And so that's what I use. That's the tool that I use to manage income and expenses. And I have a whole, I could go on for hours and hours on that, but it's one of the 3 critical tools that I use to set up. So then I'm not spending a lot of time managing if I don't want to, because I've got my checks and balances in place.
Yeah. So the beauty too of doing your course is you have all of that foundational setup done so then you can use it, but it's a sort of a one-time, time intensive setup, it sounds like, for people. And then they have these lifelong tools that they can use. Maybe I'm incorrect on that, but that's the sense.
I would add to that you are recognizing that these are tools that you want to employ. And then with the balance sheet, it's like taking a photograph. So this is the 7 steps, is to get you aware of, wow, this is a powerful tool. And then my next rollout will be, how do I set this up and manage it in a way that fits my time, money, and expertise? Because you can go high end and have a bookkeeper, or you can, use Google Sheets, which is a free platform, which is what I teach it on. So I teach the very minimal cost, and then you can kind of feel your way forward to know what your time and budget is, and then move forward. And your goals. If you wanted to be a bookkeeper, you might want to get Quicken or QuickBooks and do it. Just again, that's why we work on your goals, because there's no one right path for anyone. It's all about you.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's a good clarification, because I kind of jumped over what the 7 steps was in part about, which is figuring out your goals and dreams and how you're going to get there. So yeah, good call on that. So what do you tell somebody who is, maybe they're out of work, maybe they just don't really have a lot of money, and they're saying, this will be great, but I don't have any money. I mean, I don't have a way, you can't manage what you don't have. What would you say to somebody?
Well, that's like maybe a 2 or 3 part question. So let's start with the part of, I don't have any money to manage.
Yeah.
And that is what I hear from people who I know live in a very high-end area and have a nice house and car, because I've seen it. And they'll say, oh, we don't have any money. I'm thinking, wow, that's such interesting, because they might not have cash flow, but that doesn't mean they don't have money. And it's understanding that language, which is why I start with the balance sheet, because it's going to teach that financial literacy lingo that you need to know. But everybody has money, because you got to pay your rent, you got to live somewhere. Even if you are on EBT, that is a form of money that you have to manage. And the thing that is confusing, I think, is the language, because people think money management, they think, oh, well, what stock should I invest in? No, that's asset management, which is different than money management. But because the terminology is used interchangeably in advertising, how would you know? And it's not taught in school. It's not your fault. That's what I want you to know. It's not your fault. But that's why you need, it's a self-development journey, so you can get past all of the, you know, like the hurdles that block your success. And the language is one of those.
Right, right. So how can people listening to you wanting to do this get a glimpse of financial freedom, what that would look and feel like?
Well, you know, I think the first step to getting a glimpse of financial freedom is defining what that means to you. Because what financial freedom means to me is certainly changed after that real estate debacle. I had much different definition than I do now. And so really it's beginning defining. And if you don't know, then you go out and you ask, or you see people who have lifestyles that you want.
Right.
And because how can you ask or even think of something you're not aware of? But you know, like the basic thing is not being in debt and not making minimum payments on your credit cards. And when I say not being in debt, I mean consumer debt, as far as buying things that you can't pay for immediately. And then there's all sorts of strategies with credit card. I love credit card points. Love it. But with the caveat of you got to pay it off. You got to pay it off. Don't buy it if you can't afford it. That's what I'm saying. And because people don't have spending plans, and can't make those connections because they've never been taught, then, and you know, we can't talk about advertising too much. And, you know, there's just all these reasons why. That's why you need to engage with yourself.
This wasn't planned. I hadn't thought of it till right now, but I would love your take on people who are thinking, you know, real estate for financial freedom. I mean, obviously you've been through it. And so what would your opinion be on that?
My opinion is this. First off, I'm about to tell you a big lie, and maybe you can tell me what this is, right? Real estate investment. What's the big lie about that? With just language, and most people aren't going to know, right? Well, I'll let you off the hook. Real estate is a business. And if you think it's anything else, you are wrong, because an investment, and that's where I went wrong, because I was a financial advisor. You invest in stock. I didn't run the company. I didn't do anything. I did the analysis, followed, you know, what the analysts were saying, and then you buy and then you're done. No. And that's why I start off with a balance sheet. That balance sheet is going to tell you what you already own and what you owe, and it's going to give you all of the information you need to, and you can use it as a visualization tool. So if I want to buy real estate, how is this going to impact what I'm already doing? And then you want to take a look at your age. How old are you? If you're young, different choices than if you are getting to retirement age. And so it all depends on what is your goal with that. You want to know, it all goes back to your goals. If you want investment real estate, why do you want it? You know, and who do you want to deal with? Because I will tell you, the real estate that I bought, you couldn't pay me to buy that type of real estate. I don't care how much money I would make from it because of the issues I was dealing with, and no, horrible. So it's like you really want to know what your expectation is, because there's so much focus on ROI, return on your investment. No, that's why I'm about mindful money management. What is your heart and soul? What's your value? What's your VOI, your value on investment? And that's critical. And no one really teaches you how to make that assessment.
Yeah, and I love that distinction between it being an investment and really being a business.
It is totally a business.
So smart. Yeah. So interesting. So yeah, thank you for that. That's, I mean, that's coming from a very knowledgeable place, so it's really good advice. But
yes, it is. If I say so myself.
So yeah, and what would you say to people too? We talk a lot about relationship with money on the show, actually, and so we have a relationship with money. Everyone does their own relationship. Yes. And if you are talking to somebody who, you know, I'm assuming they're aware that they have a bad relationship with money or a difficult, challenging relationship with money. How do they, you know, what do they need to do move into this?
The first step in almost everything to make improvement is to recognize. And that's one of the reasons why, like in the 7-step program, I'm sorry to go back to that, but it's really the baseline of doing self-developing in a money management system, is that the recognition is so important. And sometimes, like I've had people in my life, not naming names, say, "You're lying to me." Well, no, I'm not lying to you. I didn't even know that myself. So yeah, I know it looks intentional, but it was not intentional because I'm just not self-aware. And that writing, that flow writing process helps you become aware. And like one of the worksheets or the self-assessments I have is a focused awareness self-assessment. And so you just put that next to the work that you're doing and you write down all of those random thoughts that you have, because it's the language that you use, that subconscious that comes out of your subconscious. So if you want to like do a test with yourself when you're talking to your kids and you're at the store, and what do you say when they want something? Do you say, "We can't afford that"? And that's probably a legacy language that you may have heard from your parents. And I would invite you that there is more abundant language to use. That's not in our spending plan. Right. Tell me why you want that. What is the opportunity cost? If you get this, what are you willing to do for it? And really just shifting how you think is the very first step. But to shift how you think, you have to go into that self-development journey and be open to an open mindset as opposed to fixed. And that's the critical part.
Yeah. And I love that, because that's self-talk too, it's how you think and it's how you speak to yourself and others.
Yes.
So all tied together very closely. And if you can try to get yourself to think the way you think, in a way that would serve you, but if the words you're using, and you can pick up a lot of that by journaling too, especially if you start journaling your fears, I'm afraid that I'll never have X, and you can just see the language that you're using in there. And, there are always ways to reframe things and restate things. So,
yes. And, I want to add to that I think if you really think you're struggling with money and you can't figure out why,
right,
is that, see that sign behind you, that secret money archetype? It's one of the reasons why you and I came together and connected, is because I love that, because it helps you identify what's going on for you with no shame. That it's just like, this is where you are. This is how your brain thinks. And and sometimes we're like, don't focus on something you're bad at and trying to get better. Focus on what you're good at and try to get the resources around you to help you improve or to delegate it. So if you hate money and you don't want to do spreadsheets and you hate it, hire a bookkeeper, make that your goal, but you can't hire that person until you understand what you're hiring them for. So that your money archetype is amazing. And I cannot stress enough, if you're struggling, you need to, I don't know, I hope that's on your website and that you're rolling out another class soon, because it's amazing.
Well, it's not on my website, but thank you for saying that. But people, if you would like to contact me about that, you can definitely do that by scheduling a session with me to just discuss it, or emailing me at michelle@limitfreelife.com. But yes, that is one of my favorite things, because it is a good starting point to just help people understand a little about their money beliefs and where they're coming from. Yeah, everything you're saying is so interesting. And gaining control over your money, we've both been in situations where we felt out of control with our money, and we knew how to do the money things. We both are educated and have worked in that industry. Right. That feeling of control around money, and I sort of hate the word control. It's not as as mindful as a word as I would like, but let's just use it anyway, because I like the idea of kind of a partnership with money, where you're working with your money to support your goals and dreams. But the reality is, control does fit. If we want to, know what's going on, we want to keep track, we want to be making active, conscious decisions about our money. So I guess in that respect, it's control.
Choice management. I like I kind of love choice management, because it's, we don't have control. Clearly, a pandemic has proven that we have no control. But what we do have control of is our thoughts. And what we do have control is risk management, which is what these tools do. It's like just that if-then programming. That's why an emergency fund, for example, if I get laid off, how am I going to pay my bills? Well, how much do I need? Well, that depends on how much my monthly expenses are. Well, how do I know that? I know that if I have a spending plan and I've looked back and historically, right? So that's how it becomes so hard to do an emergency reserve if you've not done that work. And yet it said, oh, just do an emergency reserve, 8 months. Oh, great. No, like how do I do that? Right. And how do I build up to that? And what is the right amount? That's what the choice management tools I teach help you feel really good about that. Right. And then it's also just in the mindset if it's never done. It's like there's the setup, there's the recognition, which is 7 steps. Then there's setup, getting your system set up for now, because now might not be 3 years from now, just like when you're growing a business, right? You start off where you are. And then there's then you have management. How do I pay my bills? Do I set up auto pay? What are some of the criteria? What are some of the operational things to take care of? I might not know that it's better to have my statement end on the 31st rather than the 17th of the month when the bank opened the account. I'm not ever going to know that unless I'm listening to Leslie or a couple other people who do bookkeeping, right? Okay. Then I've got my optimization. How do I then maybe every 6 months go, oh, wait, I have this credit card and that credit card is not serving me because something else changed. Is there a way for me to get a higher and better use out of my lines of credit or my vendors? Maybe I don't need, now that I've been doing my spending plan, maybe I don't need Hulu and cable TV and Netflix and whatever other, technology expenses that you have. Maybe I can go to T-Mobile and get Netflix for free. So, like, how do I consolidate? Because now I have a goal and I know, and I have my balance sheet. So I know that my choices over here, how that's going to impact. So now I have context to the hard decisions. And then I strategically plan once a year. I look in foresight. Well, like if I have 2 people making, large incomes, now I can take a look at my income tax return and start doing some of that other higher level tax strategic planning that I can't even talk about because I've not done steps 1 through 5. Right. So I'm just getting everybody on board to do 1 so we can do 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's where the fun starts, because then you start not worrying about all that other stuff because it's set up. And then you go, have significance. And what does that look like? So, it's a journey. It's a self-development journey.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you're right, it never ends. It's like any relationship, especially your money relationship is with you till the end. I mean, it's, you're thinking about money and managing money always. So it's not a matter of, getting too wealthy or whatever you might think. It's absolutely a process and a journey, and one that you should enjoy, because anything we're going to do for a lifetime, we might as well understand it and find ways to bring joy to that process, even money.
Exactly. So fund a life you love living is your vision and your purpose. It's your time, how you're spending your time. It's enjoying and luxuriating in that time you have. And it is the money. The money is not the most important. It's just part of that equation. And what's your vision? What are those milestones? And then once you get out of worrying about how I'm going to pay my rent and you have all of that done, what can you do to change the world? What can you do to leave a legacy? And that's fun too, especially for, I think, women closer to our age when your kids are getting out of school. And it's like, oh, what am I going to do now? Which is how I ended up starting this journey. My daughter went off to college a few years ago, and I was so depressed. I'm like going, oh, what am I going to do? And it's like, well, what do I love to do? I love to help people and talk about money. I love to travel. And I want to have a big goal so that I'm focused on not, what I've lost, but how I'm moving forward. So I decided, okay, global change through financial literacy. I'm going to decide what that looks like and move forward with that. Who knows how that's going to end up, but that's the big goal. And it helps you stay focused on something fun rather than, all of the worrying about the pandemic, because it's going to happen. You can't worry about it enough. It's either, you're either
it's going to happen. Yeah, totally agree. And I love that. And I love that you chose such a big vision I mean, global change through financial literacy.
I know, right?
But I love that. And I like people to hear that, because you can come up with that big vision, and then you can figure out your way to take that on. And
yes. And a small way to do that is through your spending plan. If you have a giving, I always say you have a giving percentage, and I do percentage of income. So I'm always working with the percentages. So like, figure out what your budget is, something that you are taking care of everything you need to take care of first, but also figure out what you can give. And if you have no money to give your time. I mean, but whatever that is, then find a few organizations that you feel connected to, that you want to see change. I mean, there's so many, it's hard because you think, oh my gosh, I have this small bucket and all these people need help. But if you focus your attention and really dig deep on one or two organizations, and then you have friends doing something different, you can save a small portion and donate to theirs while you're moving forward on yours, so you can make a bigger impact. So it's not being over diversified with your time and attention. Just like a portfolio, you don't get the same returns if you're over diversified. So time is the same thing.
I love this. Well, we are out of time. Speaking of time.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
No, it goes fast. But this has been wonderful, and I want to hear more from you and have you back with me on the show, because you are such a wealth of knowledge. And so, can you tell people how to get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, the best way right now is leslie.crumley@structuredsuccess.com, and I think you're going to put that up somewhere.
Yes, I am.
Okay, yes. Or reach out to me through LinkedIn. And my new website will be up in the next couple of weeks. I'm hoping, so reach out. I would love to connect with you. Really come join the weekly Schedule Your Success time blocking, where we kind of just meditative process, and just join the journey of seeker. I call us seekers because we're seeking to expand ourselves and explore the world. So I would love for you to be part of the community. So come on down.
Thank you, Leslie. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing so much. This was great.
Oh, I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation.
Well, thank you. And we will I will post all of the information so people can connect with you. And thank you, listeners, and ubngo.com for hosting and broadcasting this. And listeners, thank you so much for being here. We are here Wednesday at 1:00. You can also find the podcast on Apple Music and all the podcast platforms. And you'll be able to find the show on the Limit Free Life YouTube channel as well. And we hope to see you next week, and have a wonderful week, and make a couple money moves this week. Listen to the show and see what you can do for your own financial empowerment. Thanks so much.
Bye.